Hello, I am CU, but during the time that Mxnty knew me, I went by KJ or kjish. So you'll mostly see that referred to during all of this. I am a 15-year-old artist and rigger from Denmark. I did Fern's model art for the 1.0, and I did also Mxnty's model art for his model, which I believe gives me a lot of credibility in terms of where this information comes from. This is not just my story, but the dozens of people who have interacted with him as well. I believe that he does not deserve a platform and that he is a horrible person. I first met Mxnty when he reached out to me for a commission. He wanted me to make his model art, and I did. I got paid for it. Everything was good. I didn't really have any negative experiences with him. And the one thing to note from this interaction is that this was when he got to know that I was Danish, which is something that will come up a bit later on. After this interaction, he got a lot more active within the community and got invited to a lot of more closely knit spaces within here where we creators hang out a lot. And one of these spaces was also the SMP that a lot of us are a part of. His overall demeanor and way he acted towards people made people really uncomfortable because no one really knew him that well outside of Fern, really. But yeah, no one really knew him, so it was weird having a guy suddenly act like you were best of buds, and that ties into what I'm about to describe. He'd quite quickly gotten, I feel like obsessed is the wrong word to use, but he'd mentioned a lot of things regarding me being Danish and stuff. A key thing that he'd keep bringing up is the fact that him living in Canada, the place that the area he lives in Canada, he'd when the ice freezes, he'd be able to walk over to Denmark or to my country, and that was kind of weird for me because I didn't know the guy, and no duh, that's kind of uncomfortable. And my key issue wasn't really him making the joke. Of course, it was kind of uncomfortable and weird, but that wasn't where the main issue lied. The main issue lied in the fact that he'd say it even when I wasn't around, and when people confronted him about it, he'd say that it wasn't meant as anything weird, which no one ever really said it was anything weird, in a sense. No one ever said that it was anything sexual. And he'd use the excuse that it was meant as a murder joke, that it was meant to be a ha ha ha, I can come and kill you if I want, which was uncomfortable and was one of the reasons why he got quickly booted out of the server, and that closely knit group of people. So both the SMP and the server in question, he was fully booted out of. He had expressed that he understood and that he was, of course sad about it, but he understood and could accept the fact that we wouldn't allow him in because of his behavior. But clearly he didn't understand, because a short while later we'd get a mysterious user joining the SMP, and a little thing the SMP is normal members can't create an invite, which means that you need to go through moderators, which the moderators consist of me and the server owner, which both of us hadn't made any invites to that account. We later figured out that Mxnty was the one in possession of the account. He used the same invite link that he had received himself to get into the server. He used that and sent that to this person. And now who is this person? This person is a self-proclaimed pedophile hunter, which sounds really insane. And you might be wondering why did Mxnty try to get a pedophile hunter into this server? What was going on that warranted that in his mind? As we learned from this pedophile hunter, Mxnty had tried spinning the story of a silly joke being darker than it is. The kid that Mxnty describes in these screenshots are me. Hi. And as the supposed victim, I'm not a victim of anything in this regard. I was the one that started those jokes, and I it wasn't targeted at anyone in specific, and it was all in good fun, and it was not inappropriate in any way that would warrant involvement from anyone of this caliber. And this malevolent person agreed, let us alone, left us alone. But I felt I couldn't just sit here whilst knowing that Mxnty had done something like this. So I had DM'd him very explicitly, just asking, and this is where we get into the really deep shit. This is when it goes from person just being a bit weird to person being a chronicle liar and mentally ill.
I looked to your I looked to your reviews online and I found the YouTube wiki for you. Oh yeah, Minitubi, I think that's it, right? The part that I don't like is the fact that it literally just doxes my location, like it doxes the town that I live in. Not that anyone's gonna go there, but like,
Yeah. Throughout my confrontation, Minty would try to lie a lot to me and would fess up when I called him out on said lies. I believe that is more than enough to warrant calling him a compulsive liar, because I gave him the chance to be honest and he refused to take it. But also, there'll be more that will prove why I'm using the term compulsive liar and why I'm calling him a liar. Minty refused to be honest, and it led me to realize that he didn't actually really care, and that he was only trying to save himself. And that was like really heartbreaking for me. And it led to me deciding that I had to let more people know. One of these people being Fern, and I did tell him that I would tell a few other people. And little did I know at the time that him seeing that I was being honest with him, like he used my honesty and my patience, because the first thing he did was go to Fern and try to make Fern sympathetic towards him. A bit later, I alongside the owner of SMP would confront Fern in regards to Minty's actions, and it was hard for everyone, but it Fern understood and was incredibly kind and sympathetic and supplied us with a lot of stuff. And this is like the start of the downfall, I'd say, because now the closest people to Minty knew, and it made him spiral, or he claimed that he was spiraling. He claimed that he was spiraling and then couldn't handle it, and it led him to commit suicide, he claimed it was suicide, or he claimed to have committed suicide. Within his posts, he admits to abusing people and not being a great person, and this is true, both from what I've shown, but also what more there is to this story, because there is more. He is not a good person, and he, even though it was done to receive pity from people, is not a great person, and I believe he, to a degree, can understand and knows that he isn't a good person. His public appearance was odd. His community would grieve a lot, understandably. One particularly uses Slavic Discatcher, which claimed to be Minty's in real life friend, was the main one trying to rile people up, as I called it. They kept posting about everything, and they would continue talking about Minty as if they were a college friend, an IRL friend. They'd send a picture of Minty, slightly censored, but still a picture of Minty, which helped me tie together him and a bunch of his aliases. I would look at his PlayStation account that he has linked on his profile, that like whether or not that was active or not, and I realized that it sometimes it was active, and especially recently in like the May-June months, it was like really active, and I found that strange. I pointed it out, and it made me like question whether or not like the whole suicide thing was fake. I'd already had my doubts, but it felt gross to claim it outright. But the next arc will confirm that Minty not only is alive, but that he hasn't changed, and that he is willing to and is trying to hurt the very same people that supported him. Around, I want to say mid-July, a mass doxing campaign had been started and targeted Fern. Initially, we didn't know who was behind it fully, but we later managed to get confirmation that it was in fact Minty, not just from the fact that Minty's account, as well as Slavic's, I'll dive into this later, had been active and had created invites that these accounts were coming from, but also that the information in question that was being leaked was something that Fern claimed that only Minty, out of everyone, had access to. This harassment wasn't just in one server, it sieved into bigger servers, such as the Gacha Life 2 server, where I and Fern would get added into a ticket where we'd get shown a screenshot that Mxnty had faked of Fern harassing him. And how do we know that this screenshot is fake? Well, first of all, Fern sent a screen recording of their DMs with Mxnty, and it did not contain those messages. So that would mean that if we're entertaining the case that these are real, it would mean that Fern not only had to delete their side of the messages, but Mxnty would also have to delete his end of their messages, because you can tell that like the top part that's is like cut off is supposedly from Mxnty, because it is about an apology and message like the messages that Fern supposedly had sent are talking about don't apologize. And also another reason why you can tell that this is like clearly fake is that the actual messages that Fern has, like none of them contain any of what Mxnty has said, which would mean that Mxnty purposefully tried painting himself as being a lot more sorry than he actually was. For this screenshot to even be able to exist, it would have had to happen very, very recently, because Fern had a very particular profile picture on that screenshot, which would mean that this couldn't have been a screenshot from back then. This would have had to be screenshotted within July, because the specific profile picture that Fern has is from a post made this July and is about a movie that was released this summer. So it's kind of weird for a dead guy to be able to send screenshots. And last of all, the screenshot is very easy to prove it's fake, because it's in a browser version of Discord, the Discord browser phone version, where you can use inspect element, and you can in fact do that on Android phones, which this is an Android, which means that I think personally this has either been inspect elemented or it has been like this is an image that has just been artificially edited. Once we had proved this to the mod, we had given them context to this entire story, and the mod told us that Slavic had tried painting themselves as Mxnty's sister, which, as you can tell, Slavic was never mentioned as anything other than a supposed college friend, a friend, not a sister. It makes no sense to switch up a story unless you're trying to make your claim seem more real, which it clearly isn't. And Slavic will, or the account, or the person running the Slavic account, will continuously try to claim that they are in fact Mxnty's sister, when again, all prior communications make it not seem like that is the case. And also the fact that this sister would have supposedly been his abusive sister, which I doubt he would allow said sister to be a part of his online presence. And yeah, also to touch on the sister being abusive part, Mxnty himself has admitted that this, like, if it is to be believed, at least that Mxnty himself had like destroyed something of hers, so she had destroyed something of his in return, which I would argue that if Mxnty is the instigator, if Mxnty is the one that started with the harmful stuff, that like his sister's slightly like it's more okay, it's more like reasonable, or not reasonable, but at least like this isn't a one-sided abuse thing. There's more sides to it. But that's not the important part here. The important part here is that Mxnty faked a screenshot, and it must have been Mxnty because it was from his account. Him doing this caused him to get banned. Him and Slavic to get banned from the Actual Life 2 server, along with other similar servers, which I'm sure probably sucked a lot because he was both him and Slavic were star creators, which is why I believe that they went so hard against trying to get Fern also removed. And after they got banned, they tried threatening Fern into leaving. And they were very like it felt like they were very panicky. And once this whole thing like was said and happened, Slavic's profile picture would change into a fake, very fake. I need that to be very clear. This is a like an edited photo, but it would change into a beheading of Mxnty. Like he was sitting in his chair with his fucking head missing and being like very poorly edited blood on top. The reason why we know this is Mxnty is that the person in question is wearing Fern's merch, which only Mxnty had ever bought. How do we know that the screenshot is fake, you might ask? Outside of this just not being how a beheading looks, as someone that was forced to see a lot of gore as when I was younger, and this isn't how it looks. It's his version is a lot more bright red and gory and like sploshy, but also the fact that his arm, he's like sitting upright and his arm is just like floating kind of like in mid-air, which is not how your brain would do it, or like it's not how your body would look after being disconnected from your brain. So it's clearly edited, it's clearly fake, but the fact that Mxnty would go this far to try and make it seem like he died is quite insane. And that's really where most of the story ends, as of now. In conclusion, Mxnty is a severely ill person who is willing to hide behind lies, and he's willing to lie and hurt people that cared about him. Mxnty isn't dead. He's active. He is as active as ever. And he's continuing to hurt people, and he should not be trusted. Anyone that says that he's actually dead is lying to you. And this is a message to Mxnty, or Julius, as I'm going to call you, because you've made that very publicly clear. Julius, you are mentally ill, and I've told you to get help countless of times. I gave you the chance, and I'm tired of giving you more chances. This video was uploaded because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. If you'd just come back without making any ruckus and just apologizing, people would have probably just moved on. But the way that you've acted shows me that you haven't changed and you haven't grown. You've continuously lied, and you've tried to paint yourself as a victim, and you've tried to paint me as something I'm not, and you've tried to paint my friends as groomers and pedophiles when they're not, and you know that. You knew that all along. You need to leave the internet. He isn't safe to be around. He is mentally ill and needs help, and he knows that he does, but refuses to get help. But I'd be lying if I said that this hadn't impacted me incredibly much emotionally, and I don't think I'll ever be able to fully recover from all of this. But things will turn back to normal. I have better things to do. Thank you. Thank you for watching.